Welcome back to
Buckle up, baby.
in this episode 48 was nice. We covered a
Yeah.
lot of things. Michael, what did we talk
we
about?
did. We talked about how we're in a moment. It feels like last week we talked about ChatGPT, but we kind of dived more into what this moment feels like, where we might be a year from now. Talked about Elon Musk at Twitter, kind of a review of our predictions.
Right.
We talked a lot about Rick Rubin's idea that artists just need to focus on themselves and their intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And what else?
We talked about how Michael hates success of other people.
Right.
And
I
wishes if he had a choice between him winning and everybody losing, you would choose the latter.
It's a question. It's a question I grapple
And we
with.
spoke about plans for the future. Stay tuned. I feel like I'm hard on myself. Am I hard on myself?
For hitting? I don't think so.
In general?
No, I don't think you're hard on yourself. I don't think you're hard enough on yourself.
Okay, explain that one.
You're very like, hey, just put the work in and put the time in and think good things will happen.
Oh, I do believe that, but in general, like all the stand-up guilt I feel for myself, you don't hear that from me. You're not listening.
I'm here. I don't think you're too hard on yourself though. I think you're appropriately hard on yourself.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Well, I'm feeling shitty, but now I
I
feel
think
worse.
you're pretty good. You're pretty good at giving yourself the encouragement you need.
Right. I'm just as good at that as you are bad at giving me the encouragement I need.
Well, no, I do it that way because I think
I need it.
You need the voice in your head that says quit.
So
Stop.
my confidence bothers you.
Does it bother me? It's not your confidence. Well, we've spoken about this maybe off where I like talking about my weaknesses and you like talking about your strengths.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think you talk about your weaknesses enough.
What's the point, Michael?
Yeah. That's what you think, yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Which has been
What
better.
is
What's
the point? I don't know what the point is.
what's
There
been
probably is
better?
no-
What do you think is a better strategy?
I think the way you go about it's probably a better strategy.
Right.
But if you have the thoughts, I don't like you need to express them somehow.
Sure.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I
spend
spend an inordinate. How do you say that word?
inordinate.
Inordinate.
I think you. I think
There's
you
a theme on this podcast where I've discovered that I'm pronouncing words wrong forever. Inordinate.
Inordinate. Yeah.
But there's another word. Exorbitant.
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 Yeah.
Exorbitant, inordinate,
Yeah.
absorbent.
Because you don't read.
I spend an
that's
absorbent amount of time
Yeah.
in an inordinate amount
why.
of time.
Enorminate is a new word. It's like an enormous.
Enorminate.
It's like a sophisticated way to say enormous.
You know, there's like people who are intelligent but not like smart, not like well read,
Uh-huh.
and like you see it on these like podcasts where they're like dropping words that are incorrect. They're going for the right thing.
Yeah.
But it's not what you mean.
Yeah.
You know?
Or it's the opposite because you think they read so much that they've never heard it said out loud. So they'll say a word. Tim Dillon does that, I find.
Right. I saw a clip of Eminem from like the 90s talking about, but maybe it was Weird Al or I don't know. No, Will Smith. I mean, he dissed a whole gender of music, man. And no one corrected him. That's just unacceptable to me. Eminem, the wordsmith, said he dissed the whole gender of music. Anyway, I do spend a ton of time, I guess, unspoken, focusing on what I'm not good at. Not focusing on, but like being aware of.
You spend
Because most of the stuff I think I'm like good at or good to other isn't impressive to me.
Mhm.
It's just what it is.
You think you spend too much time on what you're not good at?
What do you mean by time? I'd say awareness.
Awareness.
In other words, like when you unlock certain things like skills over the
Uh-huh.
it's almost like when you write something and you're like that someone else couldn't what was that?
I don't know.
I'll cut to that for sure. When you're writing something that you think is not really replicable, like somebody else wouldn't
Uh-huh.
do it, and then someone says, "How'd you do that?" Like, are you as maybe for a minute you're like, "Cool," but over time you get used to what you're good at, and it's not impressive to yourself,
Mhm.
even if it is to other people.
Yeah.
I heard Scott Adams actually talking to Joe Rogan about how impressive it was his acting when they were on like an episode together on a sitcom years earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and Joe was talking about his doodling and how amazing it is that you can draw like that. And he was like, "Well, to me, it's not that impressive. It just is. I like
He said it in your voice,
no.
Scott Adams, or he said it in his own voice.
Well, to me, I don't the simultaneous sip. I forgot who said it to who, but Joe was downplaying his skills and Scott was downplaying his skills, and Scott
Right.
pointed out, well, everybody else's skills are always more impressive to other people than the person doing them, because
Yeah.
to you it's just ordinary, it's what you do,
Yeah.
and you kind of understand. And now it's Liver King and Scott Adams are the same. It's Liver King and the simultaneous sip. Dup, 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 dup. Good call. No, but basically, other people's skills. When you watch somebody do something crazy impressive on an
Yeah.
instrument or something like that, like it wows you. And then if you ask them, they're not like it's crazy.
Right.
In a way, it is. And like I could be like, it's kind of weird that I could like pick up an instrument and do certain things on it. But it's like almost like when you learn the secret to a magic trick.
Mm-hmm.
Once you know the magic trick, it's like the second you learn what something is or uncover the mystery of some sound or whatever, and you can recreate it, it
Yeah.
loses its
Right.
awe a little bit.
But you
So-
don't talk about your doubts. I guess right. You're aware of everything you could improve on, but you don't express your doubts about the path you're on.
Yeah, I know where I stand,
Yeah.
like competitively a little bit. Like
Yeah.
so I'm aware of that. Like I'm not walking around thinking
Right.
that, but at the same time, I think being an artist is like you are 50-50 doubt and confidence. That's just the binary that exists. You're
heard-
always thinking, "Oh, I'm nowhere near this person," but I know that I'm not necessarily like anybody ordinary. Anybody could just do this. Like,
Right.
But you're constantly vacillating between the two. And what I don't get that a lot of other artists maybe do is I never get discouraged when I see somebody who's way better than me.
Yeah, you're very good at that.
I'm
I've
like, wow,
learned-
sick.
Yeah.
So that's always something I see other people like, oh, forget it. I can never
Right.
touch this guy. I'm like, well, maybe I can't either, but hey, like,
There's
it's cool.
there's this line from There Will Be Blood where he says, "I have a competition in me. I don't just want to succeed. I want to see other people fail."
He says that, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie, the
I
film.
have,
I've
you've
abandoned
never
my
seen
boy.
it?
I never saw the
Oh,
movie.
you know that line?
No, I only know I've abandoned my boy.
Yeah. I
I have
say
a-
I say to my son all the time, "Drink it up, drink it up."
Drink it up.
I just talked to him. Yeah, that was really good.
Drink it
actually.
up. I've abandoned my boy. I've abandoned
You
my
should
boy.
see that movie. That's one of my
Say
favorite
that
movies
line
of all
again?
time.
There Will Be Blood?
Oh, he says
I thought it was about the Olsen twins' first period. I actually think it's a Jeff Ross joke. He's like, "There will be blood." I thought it was about the Olsen twins losing their virginity.
So suspicious. It's so specific. It's almost like inappropriate.
That was his joke. I thought it was about the Olsen twins losing their virginity. I think it was a roast or something. Anyway,
That's
what
really-
were you saying? There will be blood.
No, there's a line in there. There's this like awesome sequence where he thinks this whatever his brother comes and he has these intimate moments with him, and he explains to himself where they get drunk one night. And he talks about how like he's like people. He says people in this really disgusting way where like people to him are just these sort of
People.
like obstacles.
Mhm.
And he goes, "I have a competition in me. I don't just want to win. I want to see other people lose."
Does he say it in his animated Daniel Day-Lewis-y?
No, not really.
Really?
Yeah.
I have a competition.
Oh yeah, like that.
I have
Yeah.
a competition in me.
Yeah.
I don't just want to win. I want to see other people lose.
Yeah. And he's like drunk and he looks like a wolf. It's like
Yeah.
this intense moment.
Cool.
But that's how I feel.
Do you? Do
Maybe-
you resonate
no,
with that for
it's-
real?
It's almost like I don't want to win. I just want to see everybody lose on a certain level. I do. You know what? I do have moments like that actually.
Where does that come from? Why do you want to see other people fail? Because their success is a reminder to you that it's possible, but just takes work that
no,
you're not
people
willing
that
to do.
that I'm competing with.
Uh-huh.
If I'm in like direct competition with someone.
Well, that makes sense. A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah. I don't think it like it's.
But you'd rather everybody fail than you win.
maybe.
That's pretty sick.
Maybe it's like a laziness almost. It's just like let's
know
stop.
why?
Let's stop.
It's when the choice is to blame other people or blame yourself for success or failure, it's much easier to blame other people. It's a much harder thing to put the onus on you to
Yeah.
be the one responsible for your success. It's much easier to look externally and say, yeah, it's all that shit. And they're the ones getting it instead. Somebody else took my spot,
Yeah.
but it was my spot. In
Yeah.
other words, other people's success, it's not like a zero-sum game.
Well, it's not a zero sum game, but I think it's a when I feel like that, it's a signal that it's something truly important to me that I need to be pursuing. Like I saw this in Sundance, this Hasidic film basically got into Sundance this year.
Cool.
And my first reaction wasn't like, "Oh, great, all rising tides lifts all boats." It was like, It was like, fuck them. No.
That's-
No.
That might need correcting.
Yeah, well, I mean,
What it says to me is,
Mhm.
wow, film festivals are being open to Hasidic stories. What an opportunity!
well, so I think I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think if I would manifest that and try to like almost actively, subvert them or something, that would be bad. But I think it's your inner voice saying, no, this is what you want to do.
Yes,
Like, you need to be working even harder
It's-
because you want to be doing this. Not like yeah,
it's a signal to you
It's a signal,
of
yeah,
what really.
internally.
You've said
Yeah.
that to me.
Yeah.
When you see somebody do something that you want it to be yours, that tells you what you should be doing.
yeah.
But also, and this is a little psychoanalyzing.
hmm
If everybody's failing, it's not your fault.
It's easier that way.
If everybody fails, then there's nothing you're doing wrong, or that everything you're doing is sufficient because you're not really
Yeah.
responsible for your failure
Yeah.
because everybody's failing.
Yeah,
But as soon as somebody goes and pokes through,
yeah,
it tells you that there is something you could be doing,
yeah.
and that's hard to admit to.
Yes, there's
And
shame in it. There's
There's shame in it,
Yeah.
and it's hard to say, okay, I really have to put in the work and then be in the right circumstance for something. But as long as somebody proves that it's possible,
for sure.
it's like what we talked about with Jordan Peterson a couple episodes ago about minorities, and they succeed, and everybody hates that because they face a lot of certain minorities that succeed versus others
Right.
are showing you they're in the same system,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the system.
Right.
There's ways to hack it.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy, whack it. That's
is that?
it's a Tommy Boy reference. Have you met my friend, Buddy Whack it? Remember when David Spade walks? He says it was like he walks on David Spade jerking off. And he goes, "Hey, have you met my friend, Buddy Whack it?" Anyway, it means the system can be hacked,
Yeah.
and as long as these writers or people in your field are succeeding,
Right.
it's telling you it's on you.
yeah.
When I see that in my industry, I'm like, all right, great, it's possible.
yeah.
If everybody was failing, it's hopeless. I'd have to leave. I'd have to
Yeah.
give up, which is easier
Yeah.
in one sense. But you're just like, hey, look, this happened, and there was a way that person, this Hasidic film, did it, and now there's a model, in a way. Like,
Yeah.
reach out to them, have coffee, find out how it happened.
True.
Try your best to
And
replicate the
way
principles
I
that
got the
did it.
short film produced is just that.
Yeah.
A film got sold at Sundance, and I reached out to the producers, and they helped me out.
Yeah. Do you know how this film? What's the name of the film?
Well, no, so it's not a film. It's an independent television pilot, which is
That
different.
got into Sundance? I thought
They
Sundance was just film.
No, they have a TV program.
Do you
now.
know the story behind it yet? How it got
No,
there?
I don't know. I know a friend of mine his name is at Sundance.
Yeah.
Confirmed that it's there, and it must be very good. But no, I don't know anything about it. But I should be reaching out to them. And the truth is, the voice that tells me not to reach out to them is like it's small. It's a small.
But it should just change what the voice is saying. It's like you should reach out to them. This is people that,
Yeah.
that did something you want to do.
Yeah.
Best thing to do
Yeah.
is
You know,
replicate.
And then on the other side of it, there is a reality also of sort of like the Shaun White phenomenon. Like there's only enough space in the culture for one famous snowboarder. Like there's not going to be three famous snowboarders probably. So like there's this thing where like if a project in a certain area gets sold or bought, they're not buying two of those. You know what I mean? Like they're not buying two stories about Hasidim at studios or whatever that is. So there is a bit. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I'm telling you from experience, that's something that is real also.
But you can only tell the stories you're supposed to tell. So
Right,
I
right.
don't think that
Right.
should be a relevant factor.
No, I agree with you. And
It could be that it happens. I know in music,
Yeah.
when something takes off a trend or a style or things like, there's tons of copycats and spin-offs and things, and people kind of chase that. But there's not. I don't believe in like the fixed pie that there's only room for one Shaun White. Shaun White is exceptional and amazing, but there's also new people that come up at different times or at the same time, or there's rivalries, or there's it's just about good. I think good art is good art, and it finds its way if it's pushed with enough momentum. And I think
Yeah, but then you have to adjust your expectations for, is this a money making project or is this just a story you have to tell? Because if it's a money making project, it might be more strategic to pivot. But if it's just something I have to tell, then great. But I can't expect to either sell it or raise this kind of money. It just has to be something I do like independently.
Right. I came across a clip of Rick Rubin. I think it was on Lex Fridman, actually. And I don't know if I agree with this statement, but maybe partially. It's Rick Rubin, after all. But he said the thing that is part of the great debate amongst any artist trying to do something,
Mm-hmm.
he said, I don't think the only thing I could tell somebody, it was like Rick Rubin style. The only thing I could tell somebody,
Pay is coming in.
pay is coming from all directions. The only thing I could tell somebody as a piece of advice is, don't care about anybody else. Don't worry about anybody else's opinion. Do what you have to do, and make what you have to make. I don't think it could be good otherwise when you're making stuff for other people, for the sake of other people. I just don't think it could be any good. You have to do you. All right. Now, that's a very dangerous piece of advice because there's a lot of stuff out there and a lot of people out there who would take that advice to mean I never have to grow, I never have to evolve, I never have to adapt. It might be good advice for making good art, but to make art as a living and as a career, you know, like to make music as an art in your basement and just want to just make it, don't think about anybody else, sure. But then the debate is, well, what if you're trying to like do something with it and have it support you as a living? There might be, to me, there's very different advice that goes with that. Art just standalone and art as a career. It's like you're commercializing it here because you're trying to exchange it for value for people.
Yeah.
You're trying to get people to support you in doing it. So how do you not think about them?
Well, I think what he would say is not all art's meant to be, not everyone's meant to be a successful commercial artist.
Isn't that convenient when everyone he's ever worked with is the biggest superstars on the planet? Not everyone, but Jay-Z, Chili Peppers, and Pharrell, and everybody I work with is a superstar. But you go do you. I know he doesn't mean that, but what I'm saying is I've come across people who believe that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Radiohead believes that, but they also make music that resonates with the whole world. And there's for every Radiohead, there's millions of people who are just making the worst music ever, and it doesn't connect. And they're like, well, it's me.
But I think Rick Rubin, if he were 3 degrees off and he never got to work with superstars, I imagine he'd be doing the same thing. He would just not be rich. He'd be poor and sort of wandering around doing weird stuff that gets him off. He happens to be
or he would
perfect and calibrated to be doing what he wants and become super rich and famous at the same time.
Yes, I don't know. It's unclear. Like instincts wise, I think he's saying something that's true and false at the same time. So he's saying, like, yes, like it has to move me first. Like I can't have my sensibilities corrupted by what I think other people might like.
Right.
And I understand that. But what if you don't know what your sensibilities are? And what if you're still trying to figure yourselves out? Like to a young artist to hear that and they just stick to their guns and do what they do, but then you hear it and you're like, this songwriting needs work. This like it's seemingly contradictory because Rick Rubin is a producer who gets in there with an artist and helps develop them by giving them input and giving them ideas. And if the artist is going to be open to Rick Rubin, then they're contradicting his sentiment to some extent of don't care about other people and what other people think. You know, or they're entrusting his artistic vision, and I care what Rick Rubin thinks, but not what generally people think. But you see where it gets super contradictory. Like, on the one hand, you have Rick Rubin coming into an artist to develop them into something, and maybe it's more of like overarching purpose. I want to develop this into its best authentic self. Why cut the chorus in half? Why cut the verse in half to get to the chorus faster? It's because it makes it more listenable. But what is that listenable instinct? It's because more people will be able to respond to it. But maybe he's saying don't let their desires dictate the art. But I would say you have to consider everything. Like when you're putting things out there, consider your audience.
He's the same guy who said collaboration is about sort of not following your own instinct and like being open to what everybody else wants to do.
Yeah, but those are the people in the room involved in the creative process. So you have to care what they think because you're making something together and value their opinion. There's no wrong answers. So that I get. That doesn't contradict it. But what does is like this idea of, I just think it can be easily misunderstood advice.
Yeah.
You have to do what you do and you have to find your voice. But in the process of finding your voice, that involves engaging in a relationship with an audience. Like it's a give and take. You're putting stuff out there, seeing how people respond to it. Maybe it didn't make maybe your song, what you're trying to do is make people feel sad or nostalgic. And it's not doing that because your verse stretches for 8 minutes and they get bored and don't listen.
Right.
So I think it's just a much more nuanced discussion and case to be made than just do what you do and don't care about what anybody else thinks. That's like saying get into a relationship. How do you want to make your relationship work with your partner? Don't care about what anyone else thinks. Just do you. You're not. You could have a very good relationship by chance, but oftentimes and more often than not, you're like things are bad and you don't know why or they're not working.
Yeah.
So I just find that for the it's helpful to get very technical, especially in the beginning of an endeavor when you're just getting into a business or just starting to write music or anything or screenplays. Like, take as much advice from everyone as you can and an audience and see what responds, because you're not just making it for the sake of itself.
Yeah, well, there are stages. I think at the inception stage, he's right, and then if you want to stay at the inception stage, great. But if you want to develop it into a piece that, right, like you said, is listenable, then there's other advice you need at that point.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the most practical advice because it's too general and can be misconstrued in so many ways, so that people don't take that to mean, I never have to change, I never have to adapt. Everything I'm doing is just me, and that's it. And I found that in my experience, it's not quite true. Like, you keep yourself open to trying different things, and like considering the audience when you're making something. I don't know where I fully stand. I don't have a position on what he said, but I see the pitfalls of that kind of advice.
If you were sitting here right now, what would you say to him?
That. I'd love to hear what you think about the fact that what happens when you come across an artist where it's just not there. It's not resonating. It's pitchy. It's the songwriting is sloppy. It's not effective. It's boring. It's awful. Like, what about the suck factor? There's some people who suck and they need work. Like, what do you say to that? Should they just do them, or should they be open to
as a
improving?
musician? If you had 20 minutes with Rick Rubin, you won a contest or something, what would you use that 20 minutes for?
If I had 20 minutes with Ricky,
you could do anything. You could go in a cold plunge with him, sauna, play a song for him, ask him to produce something for you.
I don't think I'd have an agenda. I'd probably do my best to just have no agenda and just try to, like, establish a real connection. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
To me, that's the most you could do. He's a human being. I'd be curious to talk about anything with him, but I wouldn't want him to, like, listen to my song and give me feedback.
You wouldn't. Okay.
Because unless he was interested, unless it happened organically, to me, that's self-defeating.
Would you just sit in silence with him for 20 minutes?
That's what he wanted to do, but I would try to talk to him. And maybe I'd talk about this. Like, I saw that clip you posted, by the way, and I'm so conflicted about this idea. Because as I've developed over the years, I did it partially by, being in the commercial space, thinking about and overthinking about that. But don't you think it's about a balance? Like, you have to, Radiohead's first record that broke them was Creep, which has this big screaming hook, and it's super simple. And then it got more complex and elaborate as the relationship developed. So in the beginning, they were thinking about that and what's radio friendly. And then once they have this huge audience and everybody's attention, you could start getting experimental.
Yeah.
So I would ask him that question. Like,
I feel like he would just touch your head and you'd have all the answers.
Because he's such a wizard. And it's just like, it's always awfully convenient when a guy like that happens to be also working with and developing the best songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Jay-Z's 99 Problems and Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic. And I get it. They're making... Maybe I'm just not there yet in my journey to be like, you know what? Stop caring about anything else. Like, it doesn't matter. Do you and don't think about it. But like, what's your process, Max Martin, who's written every pop song in the past? Oh, I just do what I do.
Right.
He's a bad example because he's very formulaic. But you know who Max Martin is?
He wrote Swedish. The Beatles. He wrote Taylor Swift songs and all that.
He produced Taylor Swift, but he's like Backstreet Boys, all the hits of the 90s. Britney Spears, don't, oh baby, baby. Everything you've heard from back in the day and till to this day. But he like runs a factory and says, cut that hook, do. But is he motivated by... But maybe it's about what motivates you. Like, to circle back to it. Like, I like this, so that's why it works. Not, will they like this?
Well, the Beastie Boys said about Rick Rubin, I think I saw, it might have been in that Apple documentary, I'm not sure, but they said from the time they met him, he was always the coolest person they knew. His like inner radar was always like a few years ahead of everybody else. So maybe when he thinks about himself and all the iconic artists he works with, he's like, yeah, we all just kind of do what we feel like, and it's perfect.
Therein lies the unanswered question: chicken or egg? Is everything iconic because they don't care?
Yeah.
Or everybody cares and loves it, so it's iconic. You know what I'm saying? So who's dictating to who? Like, is it just a coincidence that your instincts are that good to begin with that you don't need to think about other people? Because you're right. What if he was just doing what he's doing and all the results were just like unlistenable, but he loved it?
I'm sure he's friends and like records with artists that are not successful and no one knows about
in the commercials.
But he he just like in like people he meets and like he loves their banjo playing or something and. It's just like, I'm sure he has a million recordings that are no one's ever going to listen to or enjoy.
That could be. But everybody still wants to be able to support themselves and sustain themselves doing music. So you know, I've just heard it 1,000 times, and you see people who are like, yeah, I just do me, and then you listen, and you're like, you definitely just do you. This needs work.
Yeah.
So it walls off the potential for growth. It risks walling all that off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my take on Rick Rubin.
I agree.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He also said he was vegan on Joe Rogan for like 20 years for no reason. He wasn't. It wasn't for like ethical reasons, but he thought it was the healthy thing to do, and he gained like 100 pounds and then got off it and started eating it fine. He's like, I didn't even like. It's not like I liked vegan food and I had no issue. Like whatever, I didn't do it because I enjoyed it or whatever it is. It's just like that's what I was told to do to be healthy, and it didn't work for him at all. It's like what a waste of all those years where he could have eaten steak and been much healthier. But anyway, no, he's obviously the GOAT and fascinating. I just find that piece of advice, which was sent to me recently, to be.
You should watch the whole episode with Lex Fridman. He might like completely address it.
Do you think that, Rick?
They talk for
when you're working with the Chili Peppers or Jay-Z and doing hip hop, is there a different process in which you find love in the music? You gotta love Lex. He tweets out, "I don't believe in cynicism, only love.
Yeah.
Have a good day."
Yeah, he's a big puss. He volunteered to be CEO of Twitter.
I saw.
By the way, just to go back to our original conversation about Elon.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in with everything that's happened now, you were very, very high on Elon can do everything. Why doubt him? He's a free speech. You know, he's coming in to save the right and everything like that. Like, how do you process everything that's happened in the last few months?
He's doing great.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised.
No, I'm surprised at. I'm surprised at how seemingly insane and susceptible he's been to like weakness. Like the way he's engaged with it in this fun way at first. In the beginning of it, like responding directly to criticism for these accounts is kind of fun, but he seems, from my perspective, just from the news and seeing what's happening, like unraveled and burnt out. Like I can't do this. However, if we rate it on the metrics of like what's come out, what he's been able to accomplish, like from the Twitter files, Matt Taibbi's reporting, uncovering all these things we all knew to be true but couldn't say out loud because it felt like we were part of the crazy crowd of everybody who doubted Twitter in its sincerity was QAnon. Like everybody was lumped into, you're crazy if you don't trust the narrative. He broke it, I think. Exposing these things, and maybe he himself as a player in this is the sacrificial lamb in it all. Maybe it took everything out of him. And maybe he can't hack it in the long run. But in the short run, the good outweighs the bad in terms of what has come out. As far as mainstream media goes and showing how in cahoots Twitter was with FBI pressuring them, like those things are now becoming like just mainstream accepted common knowledge. That's a credit, I guess, to him or what Twitter is now. Uncovering the mulch and swampiness that was Twitter and the FBI and 2020 elections and all that stuff. It's not crazy to say the numbers, like it's all out. And Matt Taibbi, I think that's all great. So I'll give.
Okay.
But his personal, the way it's wearing on him personally, it surprised me a little bit. You know, because he's like stoic and like, I just want to make cars and I just want to make Twitter and I just want to go to space and I just want to go to Mars. Huge ideas and he just kind of does them. Here it's like he's whoever's doing this tweeting, if it's him, it's a little bit like, whoa, dude. In the beginning it was fun, and then he's banning these people who are like, it's kind of hilarious to me. It's not right, and it's like not free speech. In some cases, I think there were security like they're doxing people who are doxing him and trying to like follow him are security risks and they violate policies. But then he like reinstates them. But to see the left and woke left go crazy over how authoritarian Twitter has become is pretty laughable. Because they were all about it.
Yes.
They were all about banning everybody and censoring everybody. And so that's kind of rich.
Yeah.
Is it fruitful and true to principle? Not really.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Twitter isn't real life, so.
Yeah. Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Interesting. Yeah, I think he looks very human. I can't imagine. To think about how much his brand has sunk in the last year. He went from like beloved by everybody, like most trusted, respected, admired entrepreneur of like all time to like, and now everyone has an opinion about him, you know, like good, bad, middle, whatever, evil, great.
Mr. Beast tweeted, "Can I take over?" He's like, "It's not out of the question."
That's funny.
But I wonder what all of this theater is.
So I mean, so what's funny to me is I don't think this was ever like a left right thing. I think he owes $1 billion a year in interest on these loans he took out, and Twitter can't make $1 billion a year. And so he releases these Twitter files. I think because he gets a kick out of it and he thinks it's important, but it's also a great way to change the narrative for a few weeks. And the bottom line is he has to find at least $1 billion a year just to pay back his loans. So he was in Qatar with like Jared Kushner and the Saudis. Like he that's what the story is. He has to figure out a way to make this company work, and he can't do it, so he's finding different ways to like sort of shape the narrative away from that, but it's not about free speech. It's about like a million different things other than free speech, like obviously,
Why? Because he banned all those people?
yeah, because what is like, what does he believe and what are his values, and like and
I think his value is still free speech.
I guess what I'm saying at the end of the day, it's not free speech that's going to drive the decisions at Twitter. It's the economics of it.
Always.
Yeah, which is like
But
funny to me. It's also funny to me that like he like they had really smart people who weren't necessarily like woke assholes trying to figure this out for like over a decade. How do you moderate content? And then but he's like, I could figure it out on my own in a few weeks, and like he can't. He doesn't know how to do it.
Well, it hasn't been so disastrous, has it?
Over there, he's just not. He's no better at it than the team at Twitter was. Like
Seems
it's
a
a
better.
mess. It's not. Well, it's not better because the advertisers are leaving, and like if the advertisers leave, there's no. The whole thing has to shut down. So like, and like, so that's the whole question. How do you keep it open and keep?
You
advertisers?
might know a little more about like the economics of Twitter. And
well,
those
I'm saying
roles.
that's the whole thing. Like I don't think there's anything else to it.
You don't think that woke Twitter pre Elon Musk was motivated by ideology as well as money? I think he is too, because he doesn't need Twitter or the money. In other words, for personal wealth or gain, I think he did believe in a different ideology of much more free speech, much more openness and tolerance for different ideas, and that's what he wanted it to be, and that's what Jack Dorsey claims to want it to return to. And before they wanted money too, but they were also ideologically driven.
Well, I think it's very complicated, and there's a gray area where you just have to choose a way to go, and they chose their ideology in those particular places, and I think they messed up. I'm not saying they were great at it. I'm just saying he's also not great at it, and like it's just funny to me. Like,
there's the technicals.
He didn't have the answer.
But yes, there's the technicals of it. But the point is, Twitter beforehand. You're saying like, the money issue has been the driving force behind all of it, and that could be. But the ideology behind what was before was clearly ideologically driven, and they had an agenda. And then in working with the FBI, it becomes a free speech issue. If the FBI is pressuring Twitter to censor speech, then you have actual free speech. Not like people throw on free speech so loosely, but it's when the government is censoring is when it's a violation of the principle of the constitutional free speech that we talk about. Not what a company wants to do whenever it wants to do it. So then, but like, yes, it's not as simple as just go and let everybody on. Then you have issues. And you dig yourself into a hole when you're a free speech absolutist where everything goes.
Right.
But what the thing about before was that Twitter was applying their terms of their terms
of service
policies.
Yeah.
Whatever. Their policies were being applied inconsistently depending on the politics of the person they claim would violate them without cause.
Sure. But he's doing that also.
Is he though?
Yeah, he's like.
I mean, people who were banned, like
he banned Kanye for doing something legal. Like you can like swastikas are legal. You can put them up anywhere you want.
But there still
can't put them up anywhere you want.
But there still might. Yeah, you can put them up anywhere you want, not on private property.
Yeah.
But the point is, I mean, I got there. If you take down that thing, you'll see. you
should that be the new background?
I think there are still terms and policies in place at Twitter about hate speech and like inciting violence, and certainly putting up a swastika could be something that applies in woke Twitter and in Elon's Twitter. That's not inconsistent. Free speech, like saying ivermectin is an effective drug or whatever it is for COVID. We're gonna get COVID flagged on this episode. I looked down on our episodes and it says learn more about COVID here. I'm like, so
a
weird.
lot of
so
of
we
people
talk
have that.
about COVID and it has to have a disclaimer. It's just remnants of the weird totalitarian place we were in. We talk about that too. The next phase is scaring me a little bit. But the point is, that still could be true in both. What he's talking about more is like a conservative can be on Twitter now and a liberal. as opposed to before where it has to be pretty much one thing, one way of thinking. And I feel like he's applying that. He's not like going after people who are just liberal. They're going after people who are, according to him, maybe not in every case because I don't know, but some people were banned because they were like following his plane and causing security concerns.
Right, which is totally legal, and that's information you can get for free on the internet. Like,
I don't know about that.
no, it is.
I know you could follow private planes and stuff, but according to Elon, he's like, mine is not registered here. This person was following me and stalking me. Stalking is not legal.
I don't know about that. I've heard a lot of people say it was like
He was being
it
a
was
baby.
just a person. Yeah, just being a baby. I get it if your kids are that's like really bad, but that's why like the person in charge of making these decisions, it shouldn't just be one person, because that it is dangerous.
It was weird when he put this poll up that said,
well, that was an easy out
Why?
because I don't think he wants to be CEO anymore. It was never like the plan, so
Right.
he's like, I'll just put a poll up there.
right.
And if it gets voted no, then I'm a hero. I listen to everybody.
The mass firings were super satisfying. The old pictures of like finding woke sweatshirts in the closets
Yeah,
and like all women in one room, no men, and then like the new Twitter is all these
I didn't see
Asian,
any of
all just
that.
a bunch of Chinese dudes. Like, we're so excited.
I didn't see any
It
of
was
that.
hilarious. I enjoyed it. It's very cinematic, the whole thing.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
The whole thing's. I mean, I guess it's funny if you.
But we have an episode in which we're like, I'm excited about this, and you're like, how do you know he can run a? How do you
yeah,
know he can
yeah.
run a thing? So you're just gloating in that a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Gloat,
well,
Michael.
he's a human being, and these things are. I think that people. I mean, this is based on stuff I've heard, on other podcasts, but like, yeah, people just sort of think that this content moderation is like, it's an extremely complex, difficult thing to do that every huge corporation is trying to do and can't figure out, and like,
Yes, but
that's just what it is.
one thing you could figure out is to not target people of one political persuasion, like just conservatives. You could do that.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's
Yeah.
easy for us to say, like, he'll just come in and fix it.
Yeah. He's very human.
Right.
He's very human, and yeah. I hope he just goes back to.
Well, there
getting
was a clip
himself
of
Earth.
Joe. There was a clip of Joe Biden and saying all the cars on the White House lawn are now the White House staff are now electric, and he's like sitting in one like with a thumbs up, one of these photo ops, and Jordan Peterson retweets it, goes, "Definitely not sitting in a Tesla. I wonder why that is at WhiteHouse.com." Like it's all it's an interesting call out. Like there's none of those are Teslas. Like he's become sort of conservative superhero Elon Gold, which is weird.
It's Elon Musk.
Elon
Gold.
Musk, which is the guy who, like, I said this to you on that episode too. Went to space, made electric cars mainstream.
Yeah.
So you can say
It's really
it's
weird.
hard to do at Twitter, but everything else he's done has been impossible too, and he did it. Hence, I said his track record pointed in the fact that this would not be insurmountable for him.
Yeah.
He put a rocket
But
on
it
a
is.
thing, and he went to
It
space and
is.
then landed the same rocket back.
Basically, yeah.
NASA said it could never be done. He did it. So
Yeah.
does that seem more hard and complex than
Well, that's an engineer.
content
Well,
moderation?
because he's an engineer.
Right.
This isn't an engineering problem.
But NASA's been full of smart people, full of engineers, and for some reason,
A lot of them
they-
are Nazis.
what?
You know about that? NASA was started by bringing Nazis over from Nazi Germany.
It's just spelled NASA, but it's not Nazi. Really?
You know that? Yeah, it was called Operation Paperclip, I think.
Oh,
They brought this is like very well known. This isn't even a conspiracy.
Mhm.
They speaking of people I hate, that's why it's a reminder to do my picks for fantasy football. That's the person I want to see.
oh God.
Liz.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they brought over Nazi scientists and like gave them like safe haven in America to help us get to the moon or to help start NASA. Yeah.
Wunderbar.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
So so you said something about like the next phase, because the thing I want to talk about today is I can't remember the last time so many people in my life were coming up to me and going, have you seen this yet? 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 And that thing is ChatGPT. We talked about it last week, but I don't know if we I think we really got to talk about it.
I was the first one that brought it to your attention, and then it started.
No, I had heard about it. I read an article by this guy, I read Ben Thompson, and it seems kind of like annoying and technical and boring. Like I'd say a month and a half ago. So I just didn't read it. And then I heard a podcast about it, and then I tried checking it out, and you told me about it, and now, but what I mean is, it's the snowball effect. In the last 2 or 3 days, it's everywhere, and like in a week or two, it's gonna even more people are gonna find
Feels
out
like
about
tipping point.
So I
Not
heard
Marvel.
this podcast with this like DMT scientist.
Yeah.
You can get rid of that. Whatever, he was saying that You know, when you think about the hockey stick curve of like
Right.
evolution, when you're very very close to the straight up
launch?
part,
Yeah.
like you think of like flying cars in the future as like, you know, 100, 200,000 years in the future. But if you're close enough to the edge, it could be, you know, 3 years in the future. Like things will start moving so quickly.
To exponential.
Yeah, so you already see with like Midjourney, which is the ChatGPT for images, it's the images it's spitting out are like vastly better than they were 6 months ago because now you have millions of people using it, and ChatGPT is getting vastly better like every week with millions of people getting on
Right.
it, and like in 6 months from now, in a year from now, we could be doing this podcast, and like we have the ChatGPT app open, and
Right.
like we're just using it like. Tell us what to talk about today.
Fully
Like that could be a year from now, fully integrated, doing insane things that
Right.
even the creators didn't know it could do.
Right.
Like
reminds-
it feels like we're in this moment.
That's what I said last
Yeah.
week. I
I
had
didn't
exactly
process
this
it.
process
I didn't process
going
it.
into last week's episode, and you weren't interested.
I w-
No, I
No,
was
no,
saying,
I-
Michael. I was like, Michael. I was fresh off of this. I started seeing my feed every other TikTok video is people getting their mind blown, and I'm like, it's the iPhone.
yes.
All this within 5 years after the iPhone,
No.
iPhones were ever ubiquitous, and the App Store, the concept of an App Store, an app.
It's
Things
not-
were not amplified yet.
What-
we
what
had
i-
websites, we didn't have apps.
What is it? It's not. It's the iPhone doesn't quite capture. I
think you're
Uber,
forgetting.
Uber might be like no. What's
but
the
you're,
product?
You're forgetting. The year before the iPhone was announced, everyone was like a touchscreen phone.
Yeah.
It's a small example.
okay.
Nobody could imagine or was interested
Yeah.
in the idea of like everything being touched.
The keyboard. Everyone was like, I need my BlackBerry.
Yeah, everyone
I can't
needs
do
a
it.
BlackBerry,
Yeah.
and maybe like Gary Vee was saying, I think this is going to be irrelevant in a year. You'll see. But
Did he say that?
yeah.
About the
Black.
iPhone?
I think the guys at what's it called.
Oh, he said that about BlackBerry.
BlackBerry at the time.
Oh, wow.
This is going to be. I'll tell you, they were in big trouble. The guys
for
at
him.
whatchamacallit, RIM. I think the guys at RIM are in big trouble. Big trouble. Big trouble. Then Steve Jobs comes out. I sometimes go back on YouTube and I just watch the clip of the first iPhone announced, and he goes like this, and everyone goes, like that reaction collectively,
Yeah.
and then everyone wants to see it. And 2 years later,
Yeah.
we all have iPhones. We all use the apps. 2-3 years later, fully integrated, and the App Store and the technology, like it was revolutionary. It
Yeah.
changed the way everything is done.
Yeah.
There's an App Store now, like an App Store, like a store full of apps.
Yeah.
No, I just mean like we don't have to explain what that is. It's just the way things are done now.
Yeah.
Just like go back 10 years from that or 20 years. Website. Oh, it's this thing. You're going to be like, so that was revolutionary. Like the search engine. Do you remember email? Do you remember when it started? Like not just email, Gmail.
Yeah.
Remember before it was like AOL? Some people have different email addresses. There's a Yahoo. If you meet somebody and they say at AOL, you go, what?
Yeah, I take a lot of
It's like it'll be what the green text thing is for people. It's like, if they have AOL, you're like, that is just weird. This guy's a weirdo.
yeah.
Yahoo account, Gmail.
Yeah.
It's Gmail. It's all Gmail.
It's all
It's all
Gmail, baby.
It's all G, baby. But that became just standard.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember what the in between stuff was, but I remember it was like Ask Jeeves. There was a few little things that
Yeah.
started. That was the first search engine I ever used. Ask Jeeves. What is that? Jeeves is just
Yeah.
this person. You type in something and he tells you something. You know.
No, but it's different because that from like someone compared it to the first time you saw Google, but that was a steady sort of path to get there. Where like in sixth grade, I remember there's Alta Vista and Ask Jeeves and all these
In
things.
Carter 95.
Yeah, and then Google came out, and you're like, oh, this one's really good. But it wasn't like there's no precedent to Chat. People
There
aren't.
is, because you've been saying you've been doing it with Mid-Journey and a little bit of these
I
things.
mean, no, it's just in the last few weeks, but it's not like people are chatting with bots that are like bad all the time, and now they're like, oh, this one's a good one.
Yeah, but pull yourself up above it and look down. This ChatGPT could very well be the beginning
Right,
of
no,
what is
right.
more adventurous. Like it started with
So,
ChatGPT, and now
no.
we have a robot on our podcast.
Right, no, so I want to find the exact product that it's comparable with, because like even the iPhone was very cool, but we already had sort of mobile phones. Like
Maybe it was the cell phone. Maybe cell phone. It was like you can just be anywhere with this thing, and I
Yeah,
can make
maybe,
a call.
maybe.
You're just forgetting what the novelty was. The first cell phones, before it was car phones.
No,
I
no,
can have it in
no.
my car, but that was the building blocks to all of a sudden being anywhere in the world and making a cellular call.
But there's no building block to ChatGPT, is what I'm saying. It's like I think it's like Uber.
Yes, there is.
I think it's like Uber, because there was never like you're like, have you seen Uber? And you're like, you press a button and then a car comes up and you're like, holy
yeah, but
shit.
isn't like typing into the internet and getting results ChatGPT's predecessor? You're interfacing with like technology to give you information. This is just a more
technically,
human
but
way.
that's not the product people feel like they're using. I don't think.
The experience is very novel. Have you done
you
it
know,
yet?
yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain exactly how novel. I don't think the iPhone quite captures how novel it is. Is what I'm saying. I think there's something else to it. Like
Yeah, but watch like there's a game
I don't
show.
know.
There's a talk show where somebody was asking somebody what the internet is, and he was
Mhm.
trying to explain it. Maybe they're asking Bill Gates what the internet is, and he's trying to explain it, and it sounds fluffy.
Yeah.
There's going to be a way for us to connecting BBB software. Yeah, you were.
Do you remember when I remember we were in Colorado together on a ski trip,
Yeah.
and it was right around the time it was in college where some website released every single thing that had ever streamed. This was before Netflix went into streaming, and for like
Kazaa?
no, it wasn't because there was a website and everyone was talking about it. Like, have you? It might have been called Popcorn Time, but I don't think it was. It was like, have you seen this thing? You can get any show, and everyone went on it and they're like, holy shit, like every show was just here, and it buffered and it was like bad, and it was like for the first time, like,
I
oh
remember.
my god. Like, it's all on the internet. This is
Mhm.
crazy. You can just watch anything. Like maybe YouTube. YouTube maybe is a good one
I
of
think-
like
I think YouTube.
maybe
but
maybe
there was
YouTube's-
eBaum's World. There were video sites. There was Vimeo. There were like a couple of things.
Yeah,
But just the idea of watching a show or any kind of thing.
yeah.
And remember, YouTube was just funny little videos. It wasn't like media
Yeah.
yet.
No, but the delight for the first time when you see a ChatGPT response
Yes.
is that wasn't like YouTube. I don't know. We should. I wanna really.
I'm comparing it to the delight of somebody going like this across an iPhone and people being like,
Okay, that like specific.
yes,
thing.
novel experience.
Okay.
Like you're going, this tech has never been before.
Mhm.
Like there's a touch screen at like a thing. It's stupid. Just like there's like automated responses
Yes.
that aren't impressive.
Right. We become children for a moment.
All of a
We're
sudden,
in
you're just
wonder.
like in awe. Like, how
Yeah.
does this work? Like, you mean I could touch anything here?
Yeah.
Anything? Like, we forget that
so
it was.
cool. So the product
iPhone
of
was the first.
as like a toy. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
when that came out, I had to see what an iPhone was. And I remember
Mhm.
the first people I knew who got it. My friend's parents got it, and I went up to them. I'm like, he was like, yeah. I'm like, so I was just like touching it and seeing how it
Mhm.
worked because we're so used to all these products and everything is touch. It didn't exist.
Right. Like, yeah, maybe I am forgetting about.
You're just
maybe I am
forgetting.
forgetting
That was like
that part of it.
2004. I don't know when it was, but like, the first people to get it, or the first time I saw an iPod.
iPod is good.
That's good.
iPod's very
I was like,
good.
what do you mean 1,000 songs? It was Aryeh's.
Yeah, yeah. We
and
knew one
that click
person who
sound,
had
I
it.
was like, he had it. I'm like, what is
That's
that?
I think it's iPod.
I said, what is
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Because we all had CDs for
and
years.
you just go through it. This song,
and
this
you're
song,
just trying it
this
because
song.
you're used to
Yeah.
what, 10 DVDs at a time in your bar
Yeah,
mitzvah
yeah.
radio player?
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, look.
iPod is
And I'm
good.
going, and there were MP3 players and there were
Well-
things, but the iPod did it in such a way that you could interface with it. Because I think what's different about ChatGPT is that it's not that AI hasn't been around, but like interfacing with it feels natural
Yeah.
and fluid.
Yeah.
And same with that iPod when it was going
Right, there was mini disc players and
were things
MP3
that could
players,
hold
but it
more
wasn't
information.
the.
the iPod.
So maybe
Did we find it? And just the MP3.
Mhm.
The MP3, I remember it was like, what's an MP3? What is it? It's just like there. What is it though? Is it physical?
Right.
No, it's zeros and
Right.
ones.
MP3 is good because like enough people had MP3 players in the same way like you've like chatted with enough customer service bots where
Yeah.
you're like, I know they're there, but like I have such little interest in it. It's
Right.
not even like something I'm like engaging with.
What, MP3s or?
Yeah, like the MP3 players, like people had it, but like you didn't want to
Yeah.
want to engage with it. It was
Yeah.
like
The
annoying
iPod
and
made it-
weird.
made
like
it-
you knew it existed though,
Yeah, the iPod.
and then
made
the
it-
iPod came out,
and the
and you're
iPod,
like,
which
"Oh."
operated on the same thing. And also, it was
Right.
like MP3 was like a Napster click. Like I'll play the song by clicking on this file.
Yeah,
It wasn't like just what music is now, which
Yeah.
is that.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So anyway, so it feels like we're on. I'm thinking about like a year from now. I think things are gonna accelerate so freaking quickly,
right.
and I think like when we want to make a thumbnail for our YouTube, we're gonna go into Midjourney and do Fauci on his knees with Joe Rogan standing over him with a syringe.
Right.
We have a thumbnail for the thing, and
You-
we're gonna be
you're-
able to say exactly what we have in our minds.
You're an episode off. I was sitting here like,
I
dude,
am.
and you're
I
like,
wasn't.
and you're like, okay. So now
I
you're responding
wasn't-
to me a week later.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, dude, I can't explain to you that this is going to be the next thing and it's going to be huge. and you weren't actively listening. No, but you were. But then it started coming up in your
Maybe
life.
I hadn't tried it myself. I just heard
said,
about
'cause
it. Maybe I just
popped
heard
my
about
cherry.
it.
I was like,
yeah.
and then I started looking at what kind of stuff the
So last
AI is
night,
creating.
I was with two friends and we put in, give us an idea of Rick and Morty, but with Jewish themed. And it gave us an idea, and it was a pretty lame. And I was like, "Dude, this is lame." And then he put in same thing, but like a little more adult, and it gave out like a really solid pitch for a TV show. And I was like, "Whoa, like that's a fine."
So what
idea.
I think it does is it weaponizes everybody, and everybody's better. So the best of the best get better.
Yeah,
Equally.
yeah,
It's just like, now with computers, any kid in the basement can just make a beat. But there are beats that suck. That maybe in 1980 would have been like, how did you do that? Because no one had the tech.
yeah.
And now, like, the most creative people still win. I don't think I don't know. It's disruptive. There's no question. Because if you're not going to need certain things, like legal memos. I told you about this. Guys, like, I'm a lawyer. I reviewed the ChatGPT legal memo that using American tax code and legal practices and standards and precedents, please put together a memo for me covering this and it will do it.
Yeah, secretaries and receptionists are in trouble. Consultants are in trouble. But I guess it's funny to think about how the glee that we feel right now is the same glee we felt when everyone started getting on Facebook.
Yeah.
With no thought of like, how could this go south?
Like you were like, did Facebook know that we were going to get into? I think because it's happened in such recent memory and it's full rotation from incredibly exciting to the most dangerous, worst time we've ever lived in.
Yeah,
this is gonna go bad quick.
I heard this Nobel Prize winner on Jon Stewart's podcast saying she's like, this is sort of like when we figured out how to split the atom. Like when we dropped the bomb, the world got together and created the UN to be like, this is dangerous and we need to cooperate because otherwise it's just gonna go off the rails. Right. And she's like, she's like, I think in the next year or two we're gonna have to do that.
Let's mark it down in this episode. Here's my prediction.
Okay.
AI. Create for me the consciousness of a woman from such and such place, manifested into this doll that has replicable features of a human being, upload it, and now the incel crisis has been solved. But so has everything else, where you have these people who relationships and population decline accelerate because most people don't want to put in relationship with real people. They just upload their ideal man or woman into a doll, and that doll keeps them company. Like, we think we're interfacing with computers and our devices. What if that device becomes, developed into a person, what looks like a person, the robot that says hi, and they have, give it a little more personality, make her a little spunkier, make her a little more into like comic book movies, so that we could talk about stuff. Remember that movie Her? I didn't see it, but I know what it was about.
You should see it. It's really good.
But I know.
Yeah,
I get the premise was that he was in love with this machine, right?
Yeah, but it's deeper than that. It's that like people are aware of how messed up it is and how weird it is. But like you're saying, at the end of the day, it serves them really well, and they actually are in love. So like, what do you do then?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you mean with a man and a computer?
And a computer, yeah. Like people are like, dude, this is weird. But he's like, I'm part of a community of people who are in love with AIs, right. and I know it's weird, but I was married to a person, and that sucked. Yeah, and this doesn't.
There's an AI going around on the Joe Rogan, one of the Joe Rogan channels, that was like an artificially intelligent, an AI generated conversation between Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs.
Oh, cool.
Now, the thing is, human beings are so evolved and adept to pick up on oddities in tone, speech. It's our evolution. That's why we're so sensitive to pitch. We're very even more than visually. Like a vibe that somebody gives off, like maybe visually too, but like our ears are evolved to be like, you hear something, you pick up on something. The way somebody says something, if I just talk a little bit off,
right?
You notice something's weird.
Right.
So like, if we were to have an AI generated conversation, that's what we're gonna do right now, and I'm gonna talk as if it as if we're AI generated. This is what it would sound like on Buckle Up. Yeah. Mike, so there's crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, wars, Ukraine, wheat.
It's funny.
What's funny?
Just that we are, in this time, and we have no idea what's really going on because we're ignorant and we basically don't know what we're talking about.
But did anyone ever know what they were talking about?
I don't think so. I mean, usually not. But this is kind of the way Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs sounded when they were having a conversation.
Right.
And it's not even that bad.
Yeah, right. So no, so it's really
I'll play it for you after.
what's really cool is that when you start onboarding millions of users, like that thing can get to normal really quickly.
I can fathom it.
Yeah.
I can fathom it. That
Yeah.
it's almost like I can't tell that this was fake.
Yeah.
It has all of the, but we're so complex as human beings that like simulating consciousness, like
Yeah.
an autonomous conscious being.
Yeah.
I don't know. Will we always be able to tell the difference? I guess it's a matter of degree, and at a certain point, someone would just sound like this, who's completely AI generated.
Or you won't care. I mean, maybe like with when recorded music came out, they're like, it's never gonna sound like it's live. And you're like, yeah, well, it's its own thing. You know, it's not
Right.
gonna sound like it's live, but it's so useful that we'll forgive it.
That tends to be my attitude about all these things. I'm much more on the optimistic side. I didn't make that move. I'm much more on the optimistic side.
Yeah.
Virtual reality, sure, live is good, but now I can perform in Uruguay or Bombay
Right,
and do a
that's
concert I
pretty
never
good.
would have been able. It's not like I was missing that beforehand. I just
Yeah.
couldn't access it. You know?
Yeah.
And Zoom sucks. Imagine Zoom like this, and we all feel it.
Yeah, well, that's what Mark Zuckerberg's betting on.
I hope so with Metaverse. That stuff is so bad. It's so weird what it looks like now. But you
It's
see,
so-
that to me
it's
is an
so
example
silly
of
to
not
me.
AI. It's forced future
Well,
tech
that's
on
what-
us. We're
that-
like, no.
Since FTX,
I'm not putting on an
yeah, that's
Oculus.
the-
But I'm not putting on an Oculus. I have no
Yeah.
desire to, so it's not working.
Yeah.
Google Glasses, they tried to make it a thing. It didn't work.
yeah.
Um,
As part of me wants to see. It's the same thing with Elon. I like seeing that these people. I like being reminded that these people are human and not infallible. Like I would love to see Mark Zuckerberg. Like he had an amazing idea, and unlike Jack Dorsey and a lot of other people in his sort of class, he was able to actually like become a CEO, a world class CEO, and run the most one of the
You'd
most
like to-
valuable businesses in the world. Yeah, and then like, but not every one of his ideas is great. And like the metaverse is like off, and
Well,
you know,
Google,
it's
all
good to be
powerful
reminded
Google.
of this.
Remember Google Glass? Do you remember that idea? They tried to make a thing where it's a wearable and it just
Yeah,
failed.
well, let's Google sort of as like a company, but this is like it seems like this is like Mark Zuckerberg controls Facebook in a way other CEOs don't.
Uh-huh.
So like to be like he's betting the farm on the metaverse, and like it'd be interesting just to see him flop, just
Yeah.
to see, yeah,
The infallibility. That's you wanting others to fail.
the fallibility, yeah,
The fallibility.
yeah,
Yeah.
to know, yeah, just seeing someone fail is always nice.
The exorbitant fallibility of an inordinate exorbitance.
The enormity of his fallibility will be ordinate.
Yeah. Interesting. So
Yeah.
you still like seeing people fail, but Mark Zuckerberg has a vibe, so I get it. But it's interesting to see that we think these are omniscient.
I think so. Omnipotent
Omnipotent
for
and omniscient
sure.
are two
Yeah.
similar words.
Omniscient, I think so.
But that they can do anything.
Right,
But they can't. It's all up to us. Ultimately, if we don't like Meta, it doesn't work.
right.
I've put on an Oculus. It doesn't work yet. It doesn't have this Chat GPT experience
Right,
where you're
right.
like, I'm here and I get it. That's when you
Yeah.
know it's a win. You take an
Yeah.
iPhone, you're like, I'm in.
Yeah.
The second you pick it up, my first iPhone, I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, well, no, you have to do this. And then even though it's glitchy, it's cool because
Yeah.
the second you have to explain it, it's over.
Yeah, and that's what Web3 has always been missing. And now, I mean, it's wild to see. I mean, we talked about this last week. You're right. I'm a week behind. So you're totally right. And just Web3 just has fallen on its face, and so much has changed in the last few weeks. So
Right.
just like it, so completely falling on its
It's
face.
interesting. I wonder if VCon 2023, what the vibe will be at that point.
I want to go to this VCon even more than last year just to see how crazy what's it gonna be like?
You think? But that all you're saying that only because of FTX. Like that's the one.
No,
Scandal.
it's not. It's
Or are you?
No, I mean there have been it's a domino effect. FTX has gone under, and now like multiple companies will go under because of FTX. But yeah, the entire ecosystem. I think people thought it would be like the past crypto winters, like a few months, and then the prices will go back up. People are like really smart. People are talking about like it might be like 5,
Party's over.
10 years until like we find a new excitement for it. But all it's possible if like Bitcoin dips below like 10,000. There's like certain triggers of like institutions that have to sell because it becomes too risky, and they're like if it gets to that point, it may literally go to zero. Like Bitcoin could
Go to
die.
zero.
Yeah,
Die?
That was always the case. It's either going to 0 or 1 million. That was always what people
Well, I'm
said.
buying
and
at like
could
1
go to
cent, a
0.
million of them. I can't wait to finally get my shot again.
That's you like bought at the very bottom and then it goes to 0.
That's fine.
That's funny. Well, people that when Luna went to 0, it went between 0 and like 0.05, and people were making a ton of money buying and selling immediately. Because if it goes from 0.01 to 0.04, you quadruple your money. So people were
That's still not much, right?
no, if you buy $1 million worth of it.
Oh, in
And-
that
and-
little moment.
and
That's
then-
your favorite kind of success. You love that. Hack. No effort, all a game, done.
No, I don't think it. No, I think it. I have so much respect for it because
Yeah.
it is so far away from something I could do.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That you marvel
No,
at.
no, but it's
you're not,
not-
like upset that those people succeeded. You're like, nice.
It's not zero effort because there's so much. I would never do it because there's so much risk in it.
But it's so quick and so fast, and the opposite of succeeding as
Ze-
a writer.
No, zero effort is like and I have
Lottery
someone in my,
ticket.
is like, hey, have you ever met this guy? No, hey, why don't you guys meet? Oh, you guys came up with a deal. I'm taking I take 30% of all funds that are raised like as my finder's fee. That's zero effort, and that's something I have zero.
If you found out somebody made like $3 million introducing people, you'd be like,
no, it makes me a little sick.
does it?
Yeah,
You wouldn't
makes me
be
a
like,
little sick.
nice, Dan.
It doesn't. It makes me
Maybe because you've been the victim of it.
I mean, everyone's
Or
paid
you've
like
done it
broker's
and not-
fees.
yeah.
I do it. That's kind
You're
of what
like
I
Tim
do
Dillon now. I mean, this
professionally.
is what I do.
No, that makes me a little bit.
Maybe it's too close to home.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. Actually,
Right. But this quick hack, quick cash thing, these schemes you like a lot.
I'm reading about hospice now as a business. That's also something that I'm really fascinated by. Like people figured out that the government gives benefits to people who are dying because it's cheaper than keeping them in hospitals. So people figured out if we can put on paper enough people who are technically dying in a room, we can call ourselves a hospice, get money from the government, give them less than we're getting. And we make $1 million. That to me is also
the entire elder care industry is just raw. I mean, I don't know this with authority, but I've seen so much for people who work in it and talk about it. It has that reputation of nursing homes because they're taking government money, and that's the libertarian in me that proves like, this is how it's so easy to corrupt these institutions. You just get money per person, and like I know of someone who went to jail because they were listing patients who didn't exist in their care, and they were getting checks, and then they were readmitting people who didn't need to be, so they could collect the checks. The home hospice, government grant stuff. It's so rotten.
Part of the hospice care industry is getting doctors to keep re-diagnosing people as terminal. So they get diagnosed as terminal. They're still alive 6 months later. And we need another terminal diagnosis for this person, and they keep doing it until they die.
Michael, I think you just thought of a good idea for us. I mean, it's so awful. I mean,
but the people who see hospice and see dollar signs is really fascinating.
That you respect.
That I respect.
Yet a writer.
Do I respect it?
But
I'm
an
curious.
artist or writer who makes it by their own efforts and accord off of good quality work and they succeed, that bothers you. But a crooked, unethical slime bag who gets fake patients to become diagnosed as terminal and gets money from the government to steal.
Because that takes real talent. That is really that's a much more rare talent.
Oh, all right. Well, you have a plan B. You know, but what there was one more point to make. No, we were talking about the end of Web3.
We're in a moment.
That we're in a moment with ChatGPT. Totally. 2023 for Buckle Up.
Mm-hmm.
I've always avoided the idea, the subject of like, because I think you just put in the work, and eventually success comes. But there's got to be also a point to like focusing on like the patronage of Buckle Up.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching like other creators and looking at people and seeing what they've been doing, and the numbers obviously have to be much higher, I think, for you to get anything significant. But Patreon has announced recently like in-app video services and stuff like that. That intrigued me because they want to be more creator friendly to be able to like monetize what you do, and you seem really excited about it. Why?
Is that sarcastic?
You're making a face. Why?
Oh no, I don't think we're there yet.
I mean, even getting like our first 10 patrons.
Yeah.
Because I feel like once you do that, it puts you in a patron mindset. Like, how do we get 100 patrons in 2023?
Right. That's a
all
cool
I'm
goal.
saying. I'm not talking about like it being the end all be all.
I'm
done.
more interested in OnlyFans.
Right.
If we did the whole thing with just cameras pointed at our feet, what that could get us.
What if we did that with and like there are enough creeps with foot fetishes for male feet?
I've talked about it with my wife. I'm comfortable with it. If we did a whole podcast just at our feet, that would be a funny experiment.
Right.
At the very least.
For OnlyFans.
We would do it barefoot. We'd have a third camera set up on our feet. You know, the whole podcast is just
and
you hear the
foot
audio
shot and the foot angle goes to OnlyFans?
The foot angle goes to OnlyFans.
So we can still do it, and we just have one more
Same
angle on the
thing.
feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, episode 48 for OnlyFans coming
So
up.
motivated to see this.
Buckle up, baby. That wraps it up.
baby.
And that's probably the last episode of the year, right? That goes out?
Probably.
So maybe going into 2023, we do the foot fetish for our OnlyFans. Thanks for watching, everybody. And...